Here with the AZ Audibles crew, brought to you by Ortho Arizona. And guys, Zach Elvira, Eric Sorensen, we made it. The postseason starts this week. The brackets are out. All the talk about who's going to end up where. And real quick, we'll jump into the Open. I know they play next week, but I feel like the top 8 teams in the state made it into the Open. Do you two feel the same real quick before we really get into it?
I absolutely do. I did not want to see CDO in the Open. I put something out there on Twitter, and I know Zach and I will concur on this. No 4A school deserves the right to get, pummeled, let's be honest, by one of the top 6A schools. And I do actually think the AA got it right, and I'm excited about this bracket.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with Eric. With South Point Catholic and Saguaro no longer in the 4A conference, there's really no reason for the 4A to be in there. I don't know why the committee leaders for that conference continue to vote themselves into the Open Division, but it worked out in the end. I did not want to see Canaan Oro tank a game. I did not want to see them lose on purpose. Those seniors deserve to have a 10-0 season. The regular season is a very hard thing to win every game in, and I'm glad that they were able to do it and also now be able to play for a gold ball at the 4A conference.
So I'm looking at the bracket, and these are the matchups. Liberty and Hamilton as the 1 and 8, Basha and ALA Queen Creek as the 2 and the 7, Chandler and Highland as the 4 and the 5, Centennial Desert Mountain as the 3 and the 6. Pretty much all year, I think just about anyone you talk to in the scene has picked Liberty as its Liberty gap, and then everybody else this season. I saw them finally in person against Centennial. That was their closest game of the year, 36-17. They looked like the better team in all facets. So I got to ask you guys, and I'll start with you, Zach. Who has the best chance to take down Liberty?
In all honesty, I know this kind of sounds strange, but I think Liberty has the best chance to take down Liberty. If Liberty can get over its semifinal hump, and maybe the hump of Chandler, for example, then I think the Lions are going to be the state champ. Centennial, obviously, right now, I think is the team that matches up the best with them. But if you look at that 4 or 5 matchup between Chandler and Highland basically mirrors Liberty in the way they play. The type of defense they run, they're both physical, they're both very fast. That could be a really interesting matchup for the Lions, especially because Highland's a team they've never seen before. And as far as Chandler goes, especially if it's Chandler in the semifinals against Liberty, we all know how that's gone the last couple of years. So that could mean an anything could happen kind of scenario. But in reality, the Lions are so good this year that if they play their version of football and they have very few mistakes like they've had all season, they have no reason to be fearful of the Open Division. I think they're going to run away with the championship.
They should. They are the clear-cut favorite. You dig into some of the numbers with Liberty this year, it's just ridiculous. They've given up 115 points, 35 of those to Corona Centennial in one game. So you look at the other 9 contests, how dominant they've been. I just think that, I know teams are different year to year, but Chandler has kind of they've had the advantage over Liberty. Rick Garrettson and that staff understands the Lions. They know what they do. I think with Khalil Valentine, and especially the way Blake Heffron takes care of the football with only 2 interceptions, not saying if it gets to that matchup that Chandler is going to beat Liberty. However, I think if they can play keep away, and if the game is tight, who knows what's going to happen? Because as we've seen, Liberty's one of those schools that I thought by now they would have won an Open Division championship. And so far, like Zach said, the semifinals has been the big hump.
Yeah, where I stand, Highland to me is the dark horse in the Open Division. Back-to-back 6A champs. They want to be here. Got to talk to Brock Farrell, myself, and Claudia over the weekend right after the bracket show, and he just seemed very dialed in, very excited to be there. And they have a real shot. They lost to Chandler. That's their 4-5 matchup earlier, but it was a game where he said they did not play their best football, and he thinks the best football for them is still yet to come. Even against Basha, they played a half that he felt like was unacceptable, and they still beat Basha. So that's a team, like you said, Zach, they match up well against Liberty. Maybe can get it done, but Liberty, the clear favorites. Over in 6A, real quick, before we get out of here, the AZ Audibles crew brought to you by Ortho Arizona. Eric, we'll start with you. Brophy's the 1 seed, South Point the 2, but who do you see playing at Sun Devil Stadium and holding up the 6A gold ball this year?
Again, I'm not going to go out on a limb and say this is going to happen, but I look at a team like Saguaro, and they're sitting there at 5-5, but I'm telling you, I talked to a couple head coaches over the weekend, and they were basically like, I'm pretty excited Saguaro's on the other side of the bracket. And the SaberCats have a lot of veterans that have played in the Open. And, when you look at their schedule, guys, they've got to win over ALA Queen Creek, which is an Open Division team. They also played Basha really close. They're not going to have to worry about seeing those teams. I think they're pretty much going to roll into the semifinals, and they could get a rematch with Salpointe, a team that is elite defensively. Oh my gosh, their defensive line, I saw them against Brophy. They look like a Power 5 defensive line, but they have some issues on offense. And if you can shut down that run game and make them pass the ball, which Brophy did last week, they got shut out against the Broncos. If there's a rematch, I love Saguaro to take out Salpointe. Then you're looking at the top of the bracket, and who knows what's going to happen in the championship. Again, I'm not going to say Saguaro is going to win, but that is a team to keep your eye on in 6A.
I'm going to hit Eric with the famous line from Lee Corso, not so fast, my friend. The Perry Pumas are playing some of their best football they have in a few years now. That Perry team is playing inspired behind Joe Ortiz. Their defensive line has been pretty darn good against some of those other teams, such as Basha. They played pretty close. Hamilton, they were close with for basically 3.5 quarters. I don't see Saguaro rolling over them to get to the semifinals. May Saguaro beat them? Of course, there's a possibility there. But this Perry team is playing so well right now, I could see them knocking off a team like Saguaro to get to that semifinal game. And then from there, we've seen Salpointe struggle offensively, like you mentioned, Eric. They've struggled against teams like Desert Vista. They've struggled against teams like Corona del Sol. This Perry team actually has a pretty good path if they can get by Mountain Point this week, which I think they will, and Saguaro in the quarterfinals. This Perry team could very well be playing at Sun Devil Stadium on December 2nd.
Good stuff as always. The playoffs are here. 6A, 5A, 4A, 3A, 2A continuing as well this week, and then the Open Division in 2 weeks. We're all looking forward to it. Zach, Eric, thank you so much. AZ Audibles brought to you by Ortho Arizona. We'll see you next week.